Okay, you are live.
Okay, just a reminder, everybody, that we have to be visible on the screen during the meeting. Matt, will you take the minutes again? Okay, I did not send everybody the minutes. I mean, I did send everybody minutes, but I didn't send in that last distribution of paper that I sent you. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes? But prior to going to that, let me take the roll call, okay? All right. We will open the meeting at 7:01, and Dr. Roberts.
Present.
Dorothy Rowe Collins.
Here.
And Matt Davis.
I'm here.
And I'm here. Regina is here. So I'll go back to the minutes now. Did everybody get a chance to go over the minutes? And if were there any questions or changes that needed to be made? Okay, not hearing me. Okay, not hearing anything. I move to accept the minutes as documented by Matt Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, Dorothy, did I have to do that by
I just
roll
was
call?
no, I just wanted to say I was not fast enough on the mute. So I'm in agreement. Yeah.
Okay, great. So all the yays have it. By all of us said yay. Okay, so tonight we were going to talk. The two things we were going to try to focus on were the self-evaluation for the board, and then hopefully start the code of ethics. We will not talk about the code of ethics since that was what Antoinette was working on, and she was unable to make it tonight. So we're going to just spend our time talking about the code of ethics. And if it's okay, I'd just like to move some things around on the agenda, just because they were just brief updates of the other two tasks that we had. I'm going to be working on the bylaws. And just to let you guys know, what I've done is I've reached out to the Greater Schools. What's the name of that group?
Council of Great City Schools. Okay,
Council of Great City Schools. And I talked to A.B. Crabhill, and he sent me some information on bylaws. So Antoinette and I are going to be getting together to look at that, and then come up with some revisions of what we have. We sent him what we have in that section 9 that you told me about, Dorothy, and then he sent me some information back. So we'll be, Antoinette and I have getting together in the next few weeks to be discussing that, okay? So that was just an update on that. Dorothy, did you want to just update us on the onboarding, if anything?
Sure. So I put together all the documents that I used in the past when new board members came on. I shared those with Matt. I reached out to Kansas City to see what they use as their onboarding process and got a lot of information back. What I think would be helpful, and I know this is just brief, so we can keep it brief, but it would be helpful for me to know kind of what how this board sees the onboarding process, especially new board members, like what has been beneficial to you all as you're coming in, and what do you wish had been included that wasn't. So if there's any direction that you want to provide or that the board wants to provide before we formally write kind of the process and the guiding documents, that would be extremely helpful so that it goes in the direction that the board wants it to.
I feel like I had a really good onboarding experience with you, Dorothy. I think you, made sure that I had all the documents necessary, pushed me to get through the classes sooner rather than later, that provided by MSBA, and had me talk to the attorney, whatever his name is. I can't remember it right now, but the attorney about. Yeah, Jeff, thank you. And then I would say the only thing for me, I think up front, I think early on, new board members should know the time commitment that exists on this board. It was somewhat surprising to me, and not that I'm, upset about. It's just I simply did not know, having served on other boards and never putting in the kind of time commitment. It's just nice to know that, and maybe up front, add that to the documents just so people can know and not be surprised by it. So
One of the things in the documents that Dorothy had was including an onboarding process for candidates. And I know that didn't apply to you, Regina,
yeah,
but I thought that was very interesting. So I see Dr. Roberts and Regina both nod your head. That may be something that we would include, because I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, yeah, and you're right. I didn't have to go through that, and we'll never go through it. But I think it can be very helpful that
Never say
people,
never, Regina. Never say never.
I'm pretty confident in my decisions, but I think it would be very helpful for new candidates to know that kind of thing. So
I concur that we need both the pre-boarding for people anticipating joining the board so that they have an idea of expectations. And certainly the onboarding piece is crucial, especially when we're communicating via email between more than a quorum. And so, yeah, I think that's very, very important. I don't believe I have all of those documents, Dorothy. So if you would kind of share them so I could kind of preview them. I don't have them in one place that I can recall.
we're not going to go over those just yet. I think when you get them all pulled together, you're going to share them with us so that we can kind of look at them as a group.
Yes.
So
Okay.
All right, great. So now we can actually spend the rest of our time talking about the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis self-evaluation. And Dr. Roberts, thank you for pulling this form up, and getting it to us. I'm going to go ahead and let you lead the conversation on this part.
Well, I do think it's important. I believe we all can agree that it's important to have some self-reflection and a self-evaluation on the work that we do. It's really key to the success of our young people. Our role is to ensure that they have a quality education, and we need to know if we're on top of that. And so I've done quite a bit of reading, and I've participated in a number of professional development workshops, and I've gone to board meetings, both in person before COVID and online, just to get a feel for the kinds of things that we should agree to check on what we're doing around. And so I did put together a draft document for your review. Trust that everybody had an opportunity to take a look at it. It is incomplete, it's simply a draft, and it will be a culmination of our collective input and before it's finalized and put before the board for a vote. So if you have indeed had an opportunity to take a look at, I would open up for some feedback.
Yeah, Dr. Roberts, I thought it was really good. I'm struggling to give you much feedback because I kind of feel like I have to go through it and then I'd have feedback. So I was just curious, like how you envisioned us maybe going through it, and then as a kind of a living document to some extent, do we go back then and revisit to see like, okay, well, this question was just kind of too easy. This question was too hard. I just don't know, and maybe I should have went and tried to fill it out, but after a month, I think it's kind of hard for me to evaluate anything. But I thought it was great. I think it's a great start.
Yeah, the expectation was really just to put before you some ideas about potential questions that we could ask of ourselves. We initially had a norming document that we used at the end of board meetings, but we didn't press forward with that. So this is an attempt to capture it. We will certainly develop a timeline whereby we would complete it. And so that's something, again, we would do collectively. For example, and I didn't want to read everything, but I'll pull out a few. There's one that I did not include that is really crucial. So forgive me, it just dawned on me a little earlier today that one of the things that's essential is that the board understands the district's data and uses it to inform decisions. And so that was excluded initially, but it's a very key piece, and data comes in all manners. And so, for example, student data is crucial. And so we need to kind of understand it. And heretofore, it has been done very quickly, and some of us may be visual, auditory, or the like, but I think taking a look at, for example, a third grade classroom, where they were at the end of last year, what the pretest determines where they are going into the new year, and what we expect to see as an outcome measure later. And so I think we really need some in-depth training around the data that we're going to use to drive our decisions, and also to complete the superintendent's evaluation. And so the high expectations for student learning, I thought was critical, creating conditions for student and staff to be successful. And so it's just some things that I've collected over time that I put together in this document. I came up with the categories: strongly disagree, or disagree, maybe, or not sure, as some points where we can start. Because you may not know. A lot of this comes with experience over time, and as new members, as you said, Matt, could be a little daunting. The board comes to meetings prepared. I think that's helpful to keep us on task and moving forward. Certainly, to spend most of our time talking about student outcomes, because that is a very, very key piece. One of the reasons why the state came in was for poor achievement. There was difficulty with finances and the like. And so those are all things that we're kind of responsible for at the governance level. And that's, and to understand that we are governance and not operations. And so I tried to embed those kinds of pieces into the document. And so the other piece is some things may be redundant. And so we'll have an opportunity to take a look at that and determine if it needs to be a part of it, or if it's captured in another line item. What I did not do was I did a rating scale. I put excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, and poor. But certainly we can come up with a point system, which I tried to capture at the very top. So that will help us to determine the category at the very end of the document in terms of the level of how well we're doing. And so that pretty much captures what's here. And so again, your thoughts would be very, very valuable, either here tonight or to take, some more time with it and determine some feedback later.
Dorothy, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think, was this modeled after any other school districts, or are you like, are there other places that are using something similar?
I did take a look at some other school districts, and that was helpful in creating the directions portion, as well as the rating scale at the bottom of the page.
Do we have a sense of, or do you have any idea about like how this would be implemented? Would board members be doing this anonymously? Like, who's going to collect them and score them? How would that, what would that look like?
I'm opening that up for input from my other colleagues as to how they, I remember that when we did the norm, we did it individually and it was collected. And I don't recall who scored that or even if we got feedback from it. I know it was turned in.
Miss Lewis collected them, and she's the one that tallied them and kept track of the ratings, and then it was included in the minutes.
Okay. Was there ever any discussion about it? That's the part I don't remember.
You know, we started it, I believe it was in like August or so of 2019. And then once we had to go to all virtual, it was stopped. So we did it for less than 6 months because we were, so she, you know, and with it being a short period of time, there wasn't a long time frame to look at trends. And so it was included in the minutes. So that was kept up to date. So are you thinking this would be done after every meeting, or what is?
I don't anticipate it being done after every meeting. I think it could probably be done quarterly, or again, that's something that I would leave to the board, but certainly not after every meeting.
Okay, so it's like similar to the norm, to the norms as far as the questions, but not in that frequency.
Yes. And then perhaps Ms. Williams can serve in the same capacity as collecting them and tabulating them. And then I would hope that we could get some feedback so that we can have some discussion around our strengths and or weaknesses so that we can get better at the work.
So how would the results of this, like, how do you see it being tied, like, to make actionable, like you said, to improve the work? Like, what does that connection look like?
Dorothy, I didn't really follow that question. Would you repeat
Sure.
it again?
Yeah, so once the results are tallied and brought back to the board and discussed, like, how would they be used to inform future work? Is it about discussing it, or are there, I guess I'm really curious as to what other school districts are doing to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel here. And you know, I'm just wondering, like, what is kind of what are other school districts, how do they do the self-evaluation process, and then how do they use it to improve? And so not just inform, but to actually go forward into action and improvement.
Dorothy, I will tell you, a good friend of mine is on another school board here in the area, and he said that he actually asked me if we did self-evaluations, and I said no. He said that their board uses the MSBA's board self-evaluation form, and when they do it, like, you know, every 6 months, and what they do is they, based on the ratings, and when they find what they need, where they need help, they arrange training for the board in those areas. And one example was understanding the data. You know, they went through training to help them understand what the data means and how we can govern based on the data because of the self-evaluation. So that may be one thing we do, is see what the ratings are and then determine where we need strength and on the board, and then we could maybe do some training. I guess we could. Who pays for training? I don't even know that, to be honest.
So there's a line item in the budget for board professional development. So that covers training, and that covers conferences and travel and other forms of professional development.
So that's what I would hope we do. If we do it, you know, we just don't have the ratings and talk about it, but we have some kind of plan of action where it helps us get better as board members. So I was, you know, I would think that would be a good plan of action.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree. I can add that once we identify our strengths and or our weaknesses, we plan appropriately to continue to doing the good work, and then plan appropriate professional development to shore where we're not being as productive as we could be.
I had a few items too. Overall, I actually liked it. I did kind of get a disconnect between the rating scale, strongly disagree, and the rating scale in the back. They were different, so I wasn't sure, were they supposed to be the same, or we have on the second sheet page, we have excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, and poor, but we have strongly disagree, maybe or not sure. Were those somehow supposed to be connected so we could?
No, they weren't to be
Okay.
connected. I was really
Okay.
providing a draft so
Mhm.
that we could take a look at it and determine which would we feel most comfortable with, and determine if we wanted to use the excellent, the rating scale on the second page, or go with the scale kind of that's under the directions, where we would have to tabulate and come up with a score.
Okay, so it's one or the other. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. I think maybe I like the. I mean, this is just me though. I think I like the strongly disagree more than excellent, because I'm not sure if I'm good. I think I'm like Matt. I'm not sure if I could really say excellent necessarily. I may disagree because I don't know, but I don't mean it's not excellent because I just don't know. So I'm not sure if I would want to make that kind of qualitative judgment call that way versus saying I just don't know.
Yeah, with that in mind, I was wondering if it might make sense to do a like all of the time, some of the time, none of the time type scale, because there are things like it's hard, like whether you agree or disagree sometimes can be hard to measure when it changes over time. And so it might be that we do it sometimes, but not consistently. And so it may be changing the scale would help help us figure out how to respond.
Yeah, I actually like that too. All the time, sometimes never, something like that. I think that actually is a good scale versus, because that's not really a judgment call. It's just, hey, this is what I see. So, yeah.
Well, Dorothy, would you send that to me? Send me an email that includes those that suggestion.
Sure, and I'll try to find a survey that looks not necessarily about school boards, but that would use that similar kind of scale.
And Dr. Roberts, I actually liked all the categories that you listed here. I did have a few questions on some. There's one that's I guess it's all on the page, but there's one that says the board ensures that the organization's accomplishments and challenges are timely and communicated to members and stakeholders. I'm not sure how the timely connects there, or should it say that the accomplishments and challenges are communicated to members and stakeholders on a timely basis? I just thought maybe the timely was in the wrong place.
And that's fine. That's why we're having this discussion, so it can be tweaked. And so if you'll say that again, I can strike it.
Okay. And don't strike it. It's just more where you put the timely. It says the board ensures that the organization's accomplishments and challenges are communicated to members and stakeholders on a timely basis. And then there was a few questions, 3 of them, that talks about us personally as board members. I have good record of attendance. I support board decisions. I follow through. And I know you gathered a lot of these questions from different places. I would just maybe put that at the bottom, at the end of the other questions.
Okay, where are we now?
This kind of toward the last third of the questions, and you have 3 that reflect on each board member individually, and they all start with the word I. I have a good record of attendance, and I would say it's I support board decisions. I follow through, because I think it's good that we not just say, and I am aware of what is expected of a board member. So there are 4 of them. I think it's good that we evaluate the board collectively, but I think it's also important that we self-reflect. Am I participating like I should on the board? I would just put all those somewhere, kind of like maybe at the bottom of the form or something like that. Yeah.
All good suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's all I had. So. Did anyone see anything they wanted to be taken out in any of the areas that are listed here? I know there are a lot of them, but is there anything that maybe, you know, and maybe Dorothy, I asked you because you've been there while you've actually had to, you know, ensure the board did what we were supposed to do. Is there anything that you thought maybe shouldn't be there?
I didn't look through it with that in mind,
Okay.
like of removing. So I'll look back. I'll scroll back through. I think, you know, and I'm thinking about the comments that have been made tonight. I'm wondering more about timing, particularly with the number of new board members. You know, when does it make sense to do this? You know, should it be done sooner rather than later? I'm wondering, you know, that was kind of where my thinking was first, but let me look back through here about.
And to respond to that, I would probably
specifics,
say
yeah.
we probably have to give board members minimally 3 months before they can even respond to any of those things. I've been on the board for, of course, less than a year now. And I would probably say that maybe I'm just there where I can feel like I could do a self-evaluation of the board. And I've been on since last August, so about 10 months. So we want to give the new board members time to really, you know, get a, you know, feel of what really goes on, how much they need to prepare for the meetings, which is something I had to learn, you know, early, and was kind of, Dorothy helped me understand, you know, you need to read through the materials and stuff like that. But, you know, I would say the first few meetings, I kind of glanced through it without realizing, oh my goodness, we're going to really discuss this in detail. So maybe I would give our new board members minimally 3 months, but I actually think 6 months is best, and maybe do it every 6 months or so. I don't know.
Is this a document that you think just to give board members a heads up around should be a part of the onboarding?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And as I'm looking back, there are some questions that are more of a yes or no. So like in particular, there's the one about has the board evaluated the superintendent? Has the board established guardrails? Have they developed a criterion process for evaluating the superintendent? So some of those are yes or no. So they may need to be moved with a different kind of a yes, no checklist. And there's more, like others too, like the board's developed progress monitoring, you know, those kinds of things. And so there may need to be different sections here.
That's a great recommendation. This too can be divided into sections.
Yeah, I see those. I mean, I read them already, but I do see them now. Yeah, it seemed like more clearly the yes and no ones. Yeah. Okay.
Just to go back to your point, Regina, I think you're right about giving some time. I think 3 months might be a good just sort of to get a baseline, because I would be curious to how many of these I feel I can answer in 2 more months. And so I think, I mean, you know, yeah, we're new, but I don't feel like we really have 6 months. I mean, we hit the ground running, especially since there's 3 of us at the same time. So we've all got stuff to do. So, I mean, just sort of pushing that, I think incorporate an onboarding, say, this is what you need to start figuring out. And in 3 months, see if you figured it out, or you have an impression of whether it's happening or not. I think that's something too, is sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And that could help.
Yeah, I'm good with 3 months. I mean, certainly I'm past the 3 months, so I'm certainly good with it. But yeah, if you feel like you guys can do it after 3 months and it's a good time to do it, I'm all for that. So
it's just a way to generate some questions that new people can also ask that may not, you know, show up in an onboarding document, but this is some things that you will encounter later. And so it can also be used just to get you thinking about what to expect.
Okay, good, good. Is there anything else on this document? Dr. Roberts, do you feel you have enough to go back and maybe make some changes and, get it back to us so on the June 17th we could, kind of hopefully finalize it?
I think I can get that done.
Okay. I'm one of those people who like to push things along. So but don't let me go too quickly because,
Well,
that could be
I
bad
think,
too.
yeah, I think on that note, we'd want to make sure we've approved the code of ethics before we approve this, because we want the evaluation to be in alignment with that code of ethics.
Okay.
And we might want to consider incorporating some of that same language or the same wording as on the code of ethics into the evaluation, because that's the document that's supposed to guide the board's actions and behavior. And so we want to make sure that those two seem to be reflective of the same board. So I don't, I think making sure that, and I know we have a pretty good idea, I think, of what that code of ethics is going to look like. But, want to make sure
what we'll plan to do then is next meeting, we'll spend a lot of time focusing on the code of ethics. And then following that, we'll hope to finalize this checklist. Okay. So anything new? That was a very good point. Thank you, Dorothy. That's exactly correct in what you said. So appreciate that. So, and I agree. I think we have a kind of an idea of the code of ethics, what it'll look like at this point. So I would make sure everybody's aware that at the next meeting, we'll focus on the code of ethics, and then our goal will be to finalize this self-evaluation so that it could be ready for, 3 months after the new board members have been here. So that they'll be here, in July, 3 months. So our timing might be almost there, maybe not quite, but close. Okay. All right. Are there any more comments about that or about the form? I don't, other than saying that our next meeting is going to be on the 17th at 7 p.m. I don't think there's anything else that we actually have on the agenda. And actually, I don't have the agenda in front of me because for some reason I can't find it.
Does it make sense for us to talk about the code of ethics? I mean, I know Tony's not here, but the meeting is recorded. I'm wondering if it makes sense, and we still have time, if it makes sense to at least do a cursory discussion of it.
Yeah, we certainly can. Do you guys have that? I mean, I have mine, because what Tony really was asking about was, did the oath we took, did it address everything in the code of ethics? And I sent you guys the oath, and it's very, it doesn't cover a lot in my opinion, but so that was her question. Do we really need to go through the code of ethics, or do we need to, or just stick to the oaths? That really is the first question. If you guys got to read the oath, did it really cover everything we wanted to cover, want a code of ethics to cover?
I think it does, but I think the code of ethics is written in a different way. I mean, the oath is based off the statute. So, I mean, that's everything that is, it's only how you're legally available to be on the board, meeting all of those things. So, I mean, that to me is sort of separate. I mean, these are the code of ethics sort of guides your individual behavior and decision-making process.
Yeah.
I think, so it's a little more specific.
Okay.
My question, Regina, is since we have two, is the positive and the negative, is it going to be one document separated into two different things?
Yes, it's going to be one document separated in two. Now, I will tell you, we did not, the previous governance committee, the code of ethics, the more positive statements, there were 14, and we narrowed it down to 8, and that's the one sheet you have. And we went through that whole process, but we did not address the negative statements at all. So we didn't actually get a chance to go through those and decide which ones we would keep and which ones we wouldn't keep. But the code of ethics, the document with the 8 we actually presented it to the board, but we decided not to vote on it because Natalie was, on maternity leave, and we didn't want to vote on it without her being there. So we had actually gotten it down to the 8 and presented it to the board. And we thought we'd present the positive statements and come back with the negative statements, but ultimately it would be done in one document. So.
And I didn't go closely line by line, but I just kind of looked generically. I mean, if you put the two together, it's pretty much very similar to the MSBA model. It's a little bit different worded. But I mean, I think it's got everything in there. I don't think it's missing anything as far as I could tell. And I mean, I think as long as we're not missing anything,
Okay.
I mean, it reads very clearly to me. So I like it. And I do like it. I was confused about breaking it up into two, but now that I see them, I understand it the way with the sort of preamble on it. So I mean, I'm fine with it.
Okay. I'm biased, but I'm fine with it too, since I was part of the committee. Natalie, led us to this point. So, I mean, if we're good enough, if we're, I mean, what are the thoughts of you, Dr. Roberts and Dorothy, though, on these?
I'm comfortable with the code of ethics. I guess my biggest question was around trying to embed the oath of office into it. I just thought that was a separate piece.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have to embed the oath of office. I think what Antoinette wanted to do wanted to see if we even needed a code of ethics if the oath of office said everything. But the code of ethics says everything that the oath of office says, but it says a little bit more as well. So we don't have to incorporate the oath of office into the code of ethics, if that's what we choose.
So will the document be approved as one final document, or are you bringing to the board the two documents separately, the positive and the negative?
Well, my goal was to bring one document, not two. We were trying to present something to the board before, at least something, because we had worked so long on it. But my goal with the new governance would be to present one document instead of two. It just makes sense to have it as one. And the original document was one. It just had the positive statements and the negative statements at the end. So that would be my goal, to present it as one. Anything else on this? Because if not, I'm, willing to take a, motion to accept this to present to the board, not at next week's meeting, but the following meeting. We could have a discussion, maybe. Is that how it works? We could discuss it at the work session and then work session and then present it for vote. Is that how it goes? Dorothy, Dr. Roberts?
If you wanted to put this on the agenda for discussion at the work session and then come back and vote on it, that's great.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
Send me a note
workstation.
to add it to the agenda.
Okay, let me get with, let's decide if we want to present this first, and then if it is, we'll present it at the workstation. So, and then, go ahead.
I mean, if you want a motion, I will make a motion to present the code of ethics as you presented it to us at the next work session.
Okay.
For discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of presenting this code of ethics? Oh,
I have a question.
Oh, are there any discussion? Yes, questions or discussion. Go ahead.
So what if no work has been done on the negative statements yet? Are we comfortable including them in a presentation to the board?
I went through the negative statements and I felt comfortable with them. What we did with the other ones is there were so many, there were 14, and we wanted to reduce the number. So we spent a lot of time working on those to reduce them, because we combined some of the things. We got rid of some duplicates to get a shorter list. But when I was preparing for the meeting, I personally went through, and I hope that you guys too went through the negative statements and felt comfortable with them. But if you guys are not comfortable with them, then we should talk about it and then decide what we'll present to the board. And I think that's what I was asking initially, you know, what your thoughts were on the code of ethics, both the positive and negative statements. So.
Yeah, I went through them too, and like I said, compared them to the MSBA, and I don't think we're missing anything. And so, I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I don't think there's anything that needs to be added to it, and I mean, I wouldn't take anything away. I think they're all important statements.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're important too. I'm looking at the don'ts, you know, and I'm just thinking like, while the do side, I guess, is we do have it listed as being, you know, when it was approved by the governance committee. We don't have that for the don'ts, but I think the larger is, you know, I'm wondering if so just because it's first, like, does this go far enough? Number one, you know, it says I won't make public through the use of email, you know, these issues. Like, do we want to make sure, I mean, is this exclusive to email? So I'm wondering if the wording might need to be refined a little bit. And then, you know, at like in number 5, it's talking about conduct activity not in alignment with our priorities and policies. Do we want to clarify what that means? Are we talking about the board's transformation plan? Are we talking about mission and vision? You know, what you know, what I'm seeing kind of overall is that we have a number of guiding documents, but it feels evident to me that they were all created by different people and at different times, and they're not like, they don't feel seamless or integrated with each other. And so I think it would be, for clarity purposes, helpful if some of these language, you know, was consistent across the documents.
Okay. And that's good. I mean, it's not 8 o'clock, so we could certainly work on some of these. Have you thought of any other language that may be good to use, Dorothy, in some of these that we could change, and make disparaging marks about the board members or make public? I mean, certainly through any media.
Yeah, I mean, just or make public, right? Like,
or make public, yeah.
I don't think it has to be specific only to email. You know, you don't want somebody calling a press conference or something, right? So, but then I think just, I'm kind of like talking off the cuff here, but just making sure.
Let's go through them. I mean, certainly we could say acknowledge that the following are unethical behaviors and will refrain from such actions. Make disparaging remarks about other board members, or make public issues which are between individual board members and not related to board business. So we email, when this was made, that was 2016, so we had all kinds of social media, but email was certainly one of the most popular sources of social media at one time. But of course, now we have everything else as well. So, you know, was the biggest concern how it would be made public versus the whole sentence, Dorothy?
No, I think for all of these, I think the intent and what they're trying to do, I think all of that is fine. I agree with Matt. I don't think we're missing anything. I think all of these make sense, but nothing feels, all these documents feel like they were created separately. And this, as we're revising them, it feels like an opportunity to kind of even out the language across. You know, we haven't approved the code of ethics yet. We're looking at the self-evaluation as we reconsider norms and bylaws. Like, all of those documents need to make sense as a whole. Because I think some of the confusion that we have as a board comes from, you know, our documents say different things in different places. And so the best way to fix that is to make the governing documents all make sense.
Okay. And now we'll say that the original code of ethics we worked off on, they were dated the same time in 2016. So these two may have at some point been done together, because I just went back real quickly to see the dates of the document we first started off with. And so it looks like they were both revised back in 2016, and then we were updating it from that. from that time. So if the wording is different, it may be different people were working on it, but it looks like they were done around the same time, or at the same time, actually. So.
They were. What I'm meaning, like the norms, the code of ethics, the bylaws, all of those documents individually. Like they don't reference each other.
Yes.
So how do we make this cohesive so governance can be easier?
I see. Okay.
Well, I think
any ideas?
I think so. I mean, so looking through it, so I think that's good to strike through the use of email and just say make public any issues. I mean, just because I mean this code ethics, it's not like one, it's enforceable, you know, it's not like there's going to be, I mean, not to say that's not enforceable, but it's sort of self-enforceable. So you know, there's not going to be any penalty if you know, if you put it on Facebook and not email, and now you've gotten around the issue. I mean, it just needs to be something not generic, but at least broad enough that it's just, this is ethical behavior. So if we take off just don't make public, that establishes just a broad ethical behavior. And then to your point to number 5, I was trying to look up the MSBA one real quick, because if I recall, their one is a little more broad too, and it just talks about instead of priorities and policies, it says in the best interest of the students and the district. So if we make it something like that, just something that, you know, obviously everyone has to agree to, because you're right. I mean, and the policy is probably another discussion that we're going to have, because as we had at the last board meeting, I mean, that needs a lot of work.
And it may be that for the first one, is the word is refrain from making disparaging.
It says at the top of it says acknowledge that the following unethical behaviors. I acknowledge that the following are unethical behaviors and will refrain from such actions. So so conduct activity not in line with the St. Louis Board of Education. And Matt, were you able to find that wording? So maybe we can insert that.
What I'm saying is that those 5 items that we have there don't line up with the statement at the top.
Acknowledge that the following
it's not grammatical, it's not structured properly, or it's not worded properly.
I will refrain from making disparaging remarks, discussing, I mean like making, but instead of making, Dr. Roberts, placing the interests of individuals or groups, conducting activity. Dr. Roberts, is it simply saying, and we will refrain from such actions, making disparaging remarks, blah, 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 discussing confidential business, et cetera, seeking. Is that what you mean by grammatically incorrect, or are you thinking something else?
Are these statements for the individual or for the board?
I think it's for the board members.
Okay.
Individually, yeah. I mean, that's what I would take them as. So.
It may just be easier to do this offline and then bring it back or send it out for review, as opposed to, you know, trying to do it right here, right now. And I leave that up to the rest of you to determine.
Well, let's go the next few minutes to see if we can figure it out here, and then decide. I mean, if there are huge changes, but if we're really talking about just a few words, it may be something we could get done and hand off to you to kind of work more on the self-review, self-evaluation.
So like if I'm looking at on the do page, number 7 says uphold the confidentiality of privileged information. Do we need on the don't page a number, item 2 says discuss confidential business in public. So are there, and I didn't do a side-by-side comparison, I apologize. But I'm wondering, how many of these don'ts are already reflected in the do's? And then, I know we talked about last time, looking at positive framing,
Yeah.
are these don'ts necessary?
Yeah, because 4 and 1 are about the same. Focus my first priority and greatest concern on the education welfare of the students, and then place the interests of individuals groups ahead of the interests of the district. Well, that's saying I won't do that. So
Yeah. And 8 and number 5 are similar on the code of ethics and on the don't page. They're kind of similar.
rules, policies, and governance procedures.
So Matt, do you have or do you recall from the model or template, I guess, that MSBA uses, how do they approach the framing? Is it typically positive framing, or how do they look at that?
Maybe able to get it.
It was all one document, and I'm sorry, I should be able to find it. I had it handy. But it was all one document, and they were kind of mixed in together. So that's why this does kind of make sense to me, in terms of, because it's very clear about refraining from doing certain things as a separate category, but they were all kind of mixed in together. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, the MSBA, it's all there. It's not great. It's not, it's generic.
Yeah.
And as I encountered a situation where people can argue the generic quality of it about whether or not that's the right, what that means. But I mean, I think that's the only way that you kind of make it workable, and it's got to be something that almost becomes personal for everybody. But I think putting the negative stuff in, just don't do this. I mean, those 5 things, to me, that does had a little more impact to it, that you should refrain from doing it. Now, I mean, the devil's in the details, or in the interpretation of what those words mean, I guess. But
so are there any major issues with, I mean, even though some are repetitive, is there any major issue with presenting both? And even if there's some repetition, as a reminder, hey, don't forget the confidentiality. Is there any major issue with what we have to cause us not to move forward for further discussion with the board as a whole?
Not for me, Regina.
Okay. Okay.
but we want to, so just because I was sort of looking that up, so we want to edit 1, we want to edit
right.
5.
Mhm.
Are we comfortable, to Dr. Roberts' point? Does anything need to be in terms of the wording to make sure that the header flows with the 5 sentences, so it all makes sense? I didn't look at it that closely, Dr. Roberts. So
I mean, I do think just
that's a good
changing
point.
the how the words are saying, you say we'll refrain from such actions, making disparaging remarks, discussing confidentiality, putting an ing there in front of each one, but I don't think it changes any of the wording or the expectations of the wording. And the only other thing I think, to Dorothy's point on that, about number 5, we'll refrain from conducting activity not in alignment with the rules, policy, and governance procedures of the Board of Education. Something like that. Because I think that makes more sense since it's in number 8. So. Did you get that last one, Matt?
Yeah, 1 second.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
um, yeah, so it's worded a little bit different, but
Mhm.
I just lost it again. Okay, so conduct activity. So it says, so what it says is unethical to place the interest of individuals or groups ahead of the interest of the district and all the students of St. Louis Public Schools. So
Uh-huh.
it's worded differently, so you could say conduct activity. Yeah, that's actually probably to say place the interest of individuals or groups ahead of the interest of the district. I mean, that's different, I guess.
Yeah, that's number 4. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I was confused. So I think
Okay,
maybe
yeah.
that's where I got the confusion is
Oh, okay.
number 5 is a little bit different.
Yeah. And there I was saying conduct activity not in alignment with the rules, policies, and governing procedures of the St. Louis Board of Education.
And I guess to Dorothy's point,
Mhm.
we're not sure what that means, unfortunately. Or maybe we do.
Well, some of them need to be changed and we are changing them, but once they're changed, we'll know what they are. I mean, like we have to go through the policies first to really know what the new ones are. And we're setting governance procedures now. So you're right. We don't know what they are today, but at the end of 6 months, we should know if we get through everything.
So say that again, Regina, how you had that word.
Conducting activity not in alignment with the rules, policies, or governing procedures of the St. Louis Board of Education. And basically, I'm taking words from number 8 on the positive side wording.
So so maybe then,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, maybe do we need 5 then? If it's positive and 8?
Mm. Well, 8 is saying we're going to adhere to these rules. And I think when we were talking about this, one of the things we want to do is kind of reinforce certain things that we don't want to happen. So while it's on the positive side, it's also good to keep some things on the negative side saying, well, I am adhering to the rules, but it's any activity. The activity could be here on the board while you're with us or outside of the board. You shouldn't be doing this. So that was kind of, I think, the thought behind keeping some of the negative things, even if they seemed a little redundant.
So let me just think through this. So some of the rules, policies, governing procedures, and the things that are in the policies
Mm-hmm.
are also in state ethics law as well as the state law. So for example, I think it was the Jefferson City School District, it was just in the news, someone had to resign because they broke the nepotism rule and they voted on a contract that a niece's brother or something, I don't know. And they didn't know it wasn't intentional, but it's very clear they had to be gone. So I just wonder if that is double redundant because the things that really matter in those rules or policies are things that if you don't follow it, you're not on the board anymore. Those do have teeth.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to Tony's points about the code or the oath of office, right? Because the oath of office kind of hits at those legal points that really are enforceable. Some of those things in state statute are, like misdemeanors, like there's actual criminal component to it. So Yeah, I mean, I think like some of them are redundant, but we do want to make sure that those, you know, there are like parts of this that are the board's own self, you know, governing piece, you know, just how do we want to be perceived, but then there are other parts that are requirements by law. And so how do we emphasize those things?
So like not disparaging other board members. I mean, that's not illegal. But we're saying we agree we're not going to do it. And that's very important.
Yes.
You know, don't discuss the confidential information. I mean, some of that may be illegal, but it's not personally illegal. You're going to get the district in trouble. But otherwise, we're also still not going to do that. Personal advantage or membership, part of that does come from the oath, depending on where it is. So is it, you know, there's an ethical personal advantage and there's a legal personal advantage. So we're strengthening that. Interest of individuals or groups are, I mean, to me, number 4 is one of the most important in this day and age and time and city, because there's a lot of this going on. And I mean, I don't know, maybe that even needs to be stronger, but I mean, I know what that means and I take that very seriously. That's one where I think other people interpret it differently, not people on this board, people outside of the board. I could give you specific examples. And then number 5, I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't think it doesn't hurt to reinforce as many places as possible, follow the rules, follow the policies, follow the governmental documents. Maybe if we're struggling with the wording or the alignment, we don't need it.
I think this might be number 5, maybe a place that we maybe mentioned the oath also, you know, refrain from conducting activity not in alignment with
your oath of office.
Your oath of office, period. And leave it there because, you know, the words I just suggested earlier are in number 8 anyway. So just I will not conduct any activity not in alignment with the oath of office as a St. Louis Board of Education board member. Is everybody, what do you guys think about that?
It's a place to make a connection, to start to tie the documents together.
Okay. So Matt, it would read something like, will refrain from such activities, conducting activity not in alignment with the oath of office taken as a member of the St. Louis Board of Education.
Conduct activity not in alignment with the oath of office taken
as a member of the board, St. Louis Board of Education.
Okay.
And it forces you to go back to see what you did, because I hadn't read this since the day I took it. So didn't remember what it said until I sent it out to you all again. So
now, is that the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis? I think there's a proper way that's said.
I think it's St. Louis. Yeah, I think it's St. Louis Board of Education, right? I think. Let me see.
It's the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis.
Okay, Board of Education of the City of St. Louis. Okay, sorry. Member of the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis. St. Louis, okay.
There used to be a judge that if you said St. Louis and not City of St. Louis, he'd throw you out.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so what we're now proposing is changing 2 of these negative brain words. The first one being 1, make disparaging remarks, making disparaging remarks about other board members or make public any issues which are between individual board members and not related to board business. And then number 5, conduct activity not in alignment with the oath of office taken as a member of the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis. So it looks like if we get all those together, our next meeting is on the 17th, and our next work session is on the 22nd. So we could come back and look at this again, and then would that give us enough time to get it on the for the work session, Dr. Roberts?
I am looking at the calendar, and I'm
Uh-huh.
going to be in Springfield on the 17th of June
Okay.
for the conference.
Okay.
So I can make the corrections and make it available to the governance committee prior to that time.
Okay, that would be good, because we could look at that. But then, well, I was asking if we got this code of ethics, revised, and then would it look at it one more time on the 17th? Would that give us enough time to get it on the agenda for the work session on the 22nd? How soon does it have to be to you to get on the work session agenda?
I generally meet with Dr. Adams the day after the board meeting and then the day after the work session.
Okay.
And so if we think we can have it completed, then I don't have a problem adding it to the work session.
Yeah, okay. Why don't we go ahead and add it to the...
And Dorothy, if it's not ready, there's no problem with amending the agenda, is it?
Well, you could, you could put it on the agenda and then just do an update. You wouldn't have to vote on it or present it, but
Okay.
I mean, you can also remove agenda items.
Okay. So Dr. Roberts, let's plan to have it on the agenda, the work session agenda on the 22nd. And if anything else changes, we'll adjust accordingly. But right now we'll go for having it on the work session agenda for the 22nd.
So I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Say that again for me so I know exactly what to add to the work session.
Review and discussion of the code of ethics.
Okay.
And then what we'll plan to do is come on the 17th and kind of look at this final draft. And if we vote for, discussing it, for the 22nd, it'll be ready to be sent to the board members. Okay. All right. Okay. But I think you can go ahead and start working on the self-evaluation based on this, because we have a general idea of probably what it's going to look like at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a few tweaks, but I think you could probably align it with the self-evaluation.
Well, based on what I heard this evening, there may be more than just minor tweaks. We talked about grouping it into categories and changing the language on the rating scale. I think Dorothy's going to send that to me. And so it'll be an opportunity to review it again. Yeah,
the minor tweaks, I was talking about the code of ethics. I think you have a lot more than the minor tweaks. So
exactly.
Okay, you guys. All right. So again, the meeting's on the 17th, and we'll go over the code of ethics and hopefully get it approved to have it for discussion at the work session. And then we'll talk about the self-evaluation again that day. Okay. All righty. I think that's all I had. I think the last thing on the agenda, which I did find, was, just reminding you guys of the meeting on the 17th, and I'll send that invite out, and then adjournment. If we have a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, great. All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Adjournment is at 8:10 p.m. Okay, you guys, thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend, and board, have a good time on Saturday. Hate to miss it, but I'll be in South Carolina, probably on the beach. So. All right, bye.
Bye.